Okay, so I've started a new book. It's basically a treatise on avoiding evil speech, Lashon harah, and instead skewing our speech towards Lashon tov, or good speech. The book is called Chofetz Chaim, and it's named after the moniker of Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan, who wrote the book. In it, he talks about two major areas: the laws of prohibition of Lashon harah, which is evil speech, and in which case that type of speech causes people angst, financial loss, embarrassment, etc., and the prohibition against rekelut, which is a different type of Lashon harah, which causes hatred between the speaker and the one spoken of. I'm just getting started, but it looks like a fascinating book, and I'd like to share a little bit of it with you. We know how important speech is. I mean, the Bible tells us that God created the world with speech. We all have heard the story of the rabbi or preacher, or ever how you heard it, who said something where something bad was said about him, and so the person came to ask for forgiveness, and he said, "Okay, let's see. So what I want you to do is take a feather pillow, cut it open, and walk around town shaking out its contents. And after you've done that, come back." So he does it, and he comes back, and he says, "Now will you forgive me?" He says, "Just one more thing. Now go back and pick up the feathers." So once something bad has been said, once we have gossiped or told a story or talked with the wrong person or with the wrong intent, certainly there can be serious consequences. And for my Christian friends, even in the New Testament, Jesus states that it's not what goes into your mouth, but what comes out that's important. Of course, he wasn't actually withdrawing the kosher laws as he died an observant Jew, but the hyperbole makes perfectly good sense. So I'd like to read you a little bit of the book. First, he talks about how it's a negative commandment to deal in evil speech. He said, "One who bears tales against his friend transgresses a negative commandment. Do not go tale-bearing among your people." Sounds pretty straightforward, doesn't it? Sorry, he says a few other things here, and I wanted to get to one of the more interesting ones that I liked. Number 4 says, "And both the speaker and the receiver transgress the commandment, and before the blind man do not place a stumbling block. For each one, both the speaker and the listener, places a stumbling block before his friend to transgress explicit negative commandments in the Torah." So I think the negative commandments are interesting, but I really found the positive commandments even more fascinating. Basically, he says that we break the positive commandments, some positive commandments, when we speak Lashon harah as well. For instance, he says, first of all, one who speaks Lashon harah transgresses the commandment, "Remember what the Lord your God did to Miriam on the way when you went out of Egypt." Remember, Miriam spoke evil of her brother, developed what was called leprosy at the time, and Moses' prayer eventually removed it. Number 2 says, "We also transgress, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself," whereby we have been commanded to be as solicitous for our friend's money as we are our own, and to be solicitous of his honor and to speak in his praise as we are solicitous for our own honor. I like that one a lot. Another positive commandment states that we transgress In righteousness shall you judge your neighbor. And that makes sense. When we judge our neighbor negatively, in evil speech, even if it's true, then we have broken this positive commandment to judge all people righteous. Also, by listening to Lashon harah, we transgress the commandment, reprove shall you reprove your neighbor. So that's a few of those that I really, really liked. And there'll be more, and I may go on and do another couple of sections on this. It's quite meaty, and it's pretty in-depth, so it would take some time to do a lot of time on this. So part 1, against Lashon harah, principle number 1, I'm just going to read a bit of this, says, in this principle there will be explained the issue of Lashon harah by mouth, by sign, or by letter, and the greatness of the punishment for one who is habituated to this sin, and reward for him who guards himself from this bitter sin, and other details, in 9 sections. Number 1, it is forbidden to speak demeaningly of one's friend, even if it is absolute truth. And this is termed everywhere by Hazal, the masters, as Lashon harah. For if there were in his words an admixture of falsehood, by which his friend is demeaned even more, this is even a worse sin, spreading a false report. Number 2, the negative commandment, which we adduced, is what the Torah stated explicitly for this issue of Lashon harah. But aside from this, there are many other negative and positive commandments the one transgresses by speaking Lashon harah. So, quite a number of good sections on here. I really need to break it down and really sit down and study it more to be able to elucidate it better. But I thought you might enjoy hearing a little bit about my newest book. And God willing, I'll be back to talk about it or something else in the future. And I appreciate your time and hope you have a good week.